Can you see me?
Not yet. There is a tiny delay, so it might just take a second or two before. Yep, you're on air.
Okay.
So now what you can do is you can go to the RE magazine page, and it might be a little like off-putting if you watch yourself, because there is a little bit of a delay. So I would say maybe just focus on the chat window and talk to the conversation.
I just muted myself on the computer so people can't hear me there. So they're just, okay, so it's 2 o'clock. If you're with Scott and you want to start, I'd say let's do it.
Ready to go.
And
okay,
then,
I'm going to hang up.
and hang up, but text me if you need to, if you can't hear me or whatever. Okay. Good afternoon, folks. I'll just give Scott a moment. Good afternoon, and thanks very much for joining this Google Hangout to discuss local community economic development and the role that electric co-ops can play in that. In the article that I wrote for this month's magazine, I talk about how co-ops can be and need to be very much active in community economic development. Because one of the things that I have said often in talks around the country is that I know that our electric co-ops are not going to be moving to Mexico or China, and that if we are not actively promoting economic growth in our communities, then clearly we risk our co-ops becoming irrelevant going into the future. So with that, I certainly want to welcome the folks who have joined us to please type in any comments at any point. Agree, disagree, or just share another perspective. I think that would be great. It's good to have a good cross sector of different views and opinions. So welcome anyone's comments and reaction to the article as well. And while we're waiting for the first comment or question we typed in the class that I teach, Cooperative Structure, a Strategic Advantage, one of the things we've done is put in NRECA's mission and vision. And one of the 5 key areas talking about cooperative communities contribute to the vitality and prosperity of those communities led by our members and help those members to do the same. So one of the objectives that the NRECA board had approved is establish NRECA as a convener and facilitator of rural economic and community development opportunities. 2, revitalize member cooperative emphasis on community and economic development. And 3, identify and support collaborative partnerships focused on entrepreneurial innovation in rural America. So clearly, from a standpoint of leadership from NRECA, There is great interest in promoting economic development at the local level, where it obviously needs to take place. So, and hopefully some folks will come forth with some thoughts on some things that they're doing, or some observations that they're seeing in their communities around the country. It's a shy group this morning. This afternoon for some, and morning for some others. So I will. Okay, great. From Scott, I'm interested in hearing more about successful types of pollinator businesses beyond forming new co-ops. Are there certain business sectors that fill the role of pollinators? Thanks, Scott. So, in the article, I mentioned the book by Michael Schumann, The Local Economy Solution. So, in a pollinator business, you're looking at businesses that then will have impact on other businesses within the community. So, one example is food co-ops, where they're providing obviously the basics of a grocery store to the community. But what they also need to do as a source beyond for their goods and services are going to be using local farmers. So they are connecting not just with the community where they're selling the food, but where they're sourcing it. So that has the impact of not just helping the customers, but the vendors. Excuse me. I'm not hearing or seeing anything in the chat. Am I doing something wrong? Are you? I've got that message from Scott. Are you not hearing what I'm saying? I'll just type in. So hopefully folks are hearing me. Darn. Uh, I'm going to type in a question. My apologies. Okay. So Scott, it looks like the problem might be just with you. Okay. Scott Bialik. My apologies to him. So, but to answer his question, the idea that looking at businesses that uh, will have an impact and touch other businesses in their community. Another good example, and one that we're also seeing now in South Carolina, they were just successful in getting Volvo as an entity that's going to be doing a facility there. The idea that then there will be providers, suppliers to Volvo as well. So creating more businesses as well. All right. Another question from Grant Williams. Can you provide some examples of electric co-ops initiating other local co-ops in addition to the examples you provided in the article? Who do you see as pushing the ball forward, members, board, or management? So sadly, there are not as many examples as I would like to see of electric co-ops initiating other local co-ops. There are some electric co-ops that are very active with local cooperative development centers. So for instance, in North Dakota, the cooperative development center is actually housed right with the electric co-ops at the statewide. In Kentucky, Several board members of the Cooperative Development Center there are connected to electric co-ops, so looking to create those partnerships. Now, as far as who's going to be pushing the ball forward, I think it's appropriate for any one of the groups mentioned, members, board, management, when they see a need. And really what it takes is people with having some vision of what could happen. So the Golden Valley example in Alaska came together when the CEO of that co-op became aware of a food co-op that was getting started. And when they found out, they knew that they could use the Red Leg program as a catalyst to help get that co-op started. And right now there's another project going on in Fredericksburg, Virginia. There's a startup food co-op there, and there is beginning to see some interaction between the local electric co-op there, as well as the startup food co-op. So I think from a standpoint of who starts the conversation, that's certainly in my mind less important. But what I try and do is make sure that all the parties realize all the tools and the resources that are available to them to kickstart the co-op development. Another great example of local economic development is what's happening in South Dakota, eastern South Dakota, and western Minnesota. Those co-ops, which are all members of the East River Electric Co-op, came together several years ago to form the REED Fund, a Rural Economic Fund. And they pool their resources, have hired professional management for that effort, and are really seeing great synergy. Dozens of businesses have been started over the years, and while not everyone is successful the way they account for it, they've been able to make sure that it works, and that the local members, the funders, are not losing money, and in fact can earn money and see new businesses. Okay. We have another question from Dave Monk. Thanks for this description of the benefits of food co-op example. It would be great if NRECA or others would track and publicize economic benefits of local energy-related activities, how local generation and energy services affect the local economy overall, and also how various co-op programs, which can enable members to reduce their bills, efficiency, okay, and so on. Looking at these two categories separately would help accelerate the process. Dave, thanks very much for that suggestion. I know that we obviously have several folks with NRECA staff monitoring this call, and I will certainly ensure that this idea is followed up on, and that a response is put together, and see if we can take it forward. I know that Economics and Research Division of NRCA has in the past certainly kept some statistics. I know that Touchstone Energy, with their Sites Across America site, has also encouraged businesses to be locating in electric co-op service territory. So, and I think that based on what I've been hearing from NRECA, there is certainly renewed emphasis in this area of wanting to make sure that electric co-ops play a critical role in local economic development. Certainly welcome any other comments or questions or suggestions they would like to see us follow up on. One of the things that I have been struck with during my travels to some very rural areas of this country is that in many cases the electric co-op is the idea is the main economic engine in those communities. And electric co-op cannot sell electricity to a business that has shuttered, or to homes that have been abandoned or foreclosed on. So for me, the impetus to do this is absolutely there. If we think about how our co-ops got started, they had a need that they needed to meet, that of bringing electricity to those areas, and creating economic opportunity. But over time, 75 years in many cases, things change, and we need to be constantly with our finger on the pulse of what's happening in our communities, and not simply take the attitude that that's someone else's job. I did have a conversation at a recent training event, where I was talking with a director whose co-op had previously been involved in economic development, and they had some issues with it. The business that they were heavily involved in did not work out in the end as they would have liked. And that has really taken away their appetite for doing anything further. And what I tried to convince that director is that rather than just abandon the effort altogether after one less than positive experience, that really let's learn from that mistake. Okay, so we entered into a business that it did not work out, and there were some financial losses there. So what are the takeaways from that? What did we not do as well as we could have, so that in the future, if another opportunity does present itself, or we go and help make another opportunity, that we certainly don't repeat any of those same mistakes, and use it as a real learning experience, so that we can do much better in the future. Still welcome any more comments out there. If anyone else has some thoughts that they want to share, and look to okay. All right, thank you, Scott. Smaller co-ops can't always staff a community economic and development person. When the co-op, who then at the co-op should take the lead, and is teaming with the G&T their best option? Thanks. It can be, absolutely. I've actually been surprised that the Reed Fund that East River created has not been replicated by other G&Ts, and I still hope at some point that it will be. I know in Iowa, the Iowa Area Development Group has done that kind of teaming. Iowa is home to some of the smallest co-ops in the country, so this is a classic case of where teaming together with neighboring co-ops makes a great deal of sense, especially if you are a very small co-op. So, okay. Back to Dave Monk. I think some co-ops will find it easy to focus on energy-related activities first. Okay, that's a follow-up for Scott on that, also serving to increase awareness of economic developments. And I think the other thing that we can be doing and should be doing is sharing our success stories, as well as the stories that don't work out. So in addition to being good fodder for a future article for RE Magazine, I can see this as a topic at one of our meetings coming up in a variety of different forms, be it with directors, CEOs, member services folks, really trying to ascertain what is going on out there, and what is working, what kinds of partnerships are people creating, because one of the great things about the co-op business model, from my perspective, is our great ability to share information with one another, and so that we can continue to learn from each other's successes and our mistakes, and replicate those successes, so that we can continue to grow the and prosper in the rural areas that are seeing some challenges in that area. NRDA and their efforts in this area, would you recommend that co-ops look at teaming with them? That's the National Rural Economic Developers Association, and I, in full disclosure, served on the board of that organization for several years. Yes, they have some really good resources. One of the things that I have, a couple years back, I spoke at their annual meeting as well, and I guess one of the main points that I want to sort of weave this session and one of the themes of the article was that while we can do economic development in the traditional way of trying to attract outside businesses, and in some cases that may be extremely appropriate and the wise thing to do. I think a lot of times we're leaving some resources on the table, and those resources are the people in the local community who really have the most to gain and have the most at risk if sustainable economic development is not carried out. And part of my frustration of trying to attract outside businesses to rural communities is that then we're always beholden to them. So I remember a couple years ago, I was in Missouri, and the Walmart that a co-op had worked hard to attract to their community several years before that, one of the super centers, then decided that they were going to move because of either tax breaks that another county was giving them, or the profits weren't high enough. And then what looked like what was a great opportunity a few years back now becomes much less so. And again, not slamming any particular companies or organizations. I just, as a very much a co-op component, I like the fact that one of our principles, number 4, is autonomy and independence. That we get to control and have a great say in what those decisions are having in our local community. I think over the long term, that's going to make it more sustainable. We're going to have more buy-in from the folks who are part of it, and we can help control our own destiny. Having said that, I am sensitive to the fact that in some communities, that attracting outside businesses, may be the best solution for them at a given point in time. But over the long haul, I think creating our own solutions with other cooperative businesses that are going to have their organic roots in the community makes it much more sustainable over the long haul. I'm going to allow you maybe type a message now if that works for you. And if there are more comments or questions, please feel free. But I certainly don't want to use up people's time in a way that's less than productive for them. And I appreciate the input that many of you put into this conversation. And certainly welcome continuing it, long past this session as well. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Adam.
Are you with Scott?
He's in his office.
Oh, okay.
That went well.
Did it?
Yeah, it really did. I think it worked out well. There
I
wasn't
think
as
I
much
think
of a-
I think Scott is calling me now.
Okay.
All right.
Fair.
Hold on. Let me end this. I'll be right back. Scott?
Adam,
Yes.
I mean, going well.
Okay. I was just on the phone with Matt. Can you loop him in?
He might be still on the phone. Did he just hang up with you?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can hang out.
Yeah.